So Karen,
Yes.
I have a confession.
Oh boy.
It's
This
a doozy.
does not bode well.
It does not bode well. Because I may have committed us to a
Oh.
conversation that could either blow our minds or make us rethink every bad haircut, every ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, and questionable life choices we've ever made.
That's a lot of thinking. I mean, for you. Me,
Yeah,
It's a blink.
I know. See, this involves something called the spinal cord of God. And no, I didn't pull that from a sci-fi novel. Apparently, it's this living energy field that tracks everything about you.
Oh, wow.
Your relationships, your money patterns, even why you keep dating that same less than human form over and over again.
Well, I quit dating him last week.
Last week. Okay, the best part is our guest says you can actually read it, kind of like the cosmic Google Doc for your soul. And by the time this episode is over, you, dear listener or watcher, might just be tempted to check your own energetic browser history. So yeah, get ready, because today's conversation is going to be part cosmic therapy, part spiritual tech support, and 100% going to mess in the best possible way with how you see yourself. The Skeptic Metaphysicians starts now.
My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
both want to believe.
so we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something
Anything.
that will prove that there's something beyond this physical.
Three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians.
Hey there, I am Will.
And I'm Karen.
And welcome to an episode of the Skeptic Metaphysicians that finally answers the question of whether the universe really is watching, and can we at least get a copy of the footage?
No, thank you.
Today's guest is someone who might just make you rethink everything that you thought you knew about your soul story. She's an internationally recognized teacher and guide in the Akashic Records. Basically, she helps people access the energetic database of everything their souls ever experienced. And you know that only leads to trouble. She's the founder of the School of Akashic Records, leads retreats around the world, and has spent over 20 years helping spiritual seekers and conscious leaders turn big mystical concepts into practical tools for everyday clarity and purpose. And yep, she's the first person who's ever made me wonder if the universe is tracking me better than my iPhone. Welcome to the show, Heather Ivany. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me. Lovely to be in your company.
Oh, likewise.
She says that now.
Heather, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. I got to ask right off the bat, when someone says the Akashic Records, are we talking cosmic library, spiritual mainframe, universe's never-ending group chat? What exactly are we talking about here?
Yeah, so sort of the stereotype languaging that's used is describing the Akashic Records as an etheric library. It's a great way to picture, because we learn a lot through visual, so it gives us a great way to sort of picture what it could be. The reason why I like to bring in other ways to describe it is because a lot of people then start to associate with if you can't see a library when you're opening up the records, or if you don't view it from the point of view of feeling like you're almost reading someone's book of their life, then a lot of people feel like they're not in connection with it or accessing it. And if you want to stretch it even a little bit further, a lot of people access the Akashic Records without any visuals at all. They use other forms of intuitive hits, like clairsentient, which is the way that we feel. Clairaudio is how we hear without actual sounds being around us. And also claircognizance, which is the knowing without being taught. So yes, that's one great way to talk about it, is a cosmic library. But what I love to do is really bring it down into like practical sort of daily ways that we can work with it, because I really feel wholeheartedly that there needs to be more bridges between the cosmic realm and the physical realm, because you're either in this group or that group, or this camp, that camp. And the more that we can bridge between the two, it just invites more people in and more depth and understanding with what we're playing with.
So if there's so, kind of getting back to what it is, if there's so many different ways to experience the Akashic Records, how do you know that that's really where you are?
Right. So I'll back up even a little bit further if you're open to it. And so the Akasha is a little bit different than the Akashic Records. So
Oh.
Akasha is kind of like the umbrella that arches through everything. So it's like the myofascia of the universe. People call it consciousness if they're more spiritually connected.
Mm-hmm.
You'll call it quantum field if you're more scientifically inclined. So it's a Sanskrit word, akasha, and it directly translates to the word space, which we connect to quantum because space is the study of or quantum physics is the study of everything, and space is in everything,
Mm-hmm.
or spirit, which is consciousness. So that's the akasha. That's sort of the life force energy that's in and amongst everything. And then an akashic record is the specific divine blueprint of your particular makeup. So people have akashic records, and then animals have akashic records, plants have akashic records. So anything that is a conscious breathing organism will have an akashic record, even what we assume is like inanimate, such as like rocks and minerals and elements even would have an akashic record.
Good God.
So yeah, it's very vast. But did I answer your question there, like a little bit?
A little bit, but now I have another question.
Yeah.
And now I just forgot my other question. Oh my gosh, I started laughing and it's
See
gone.
the lesson of the story?
I have to be serious.
Don't laugh.
Don't laugh.
This is a very serious
Oh,
topic we're talking
Okay, I
about.
remember now. So, is it a record, I guess, in quotes, of your experiences, lifetimes, whatever, on Earth, or every galaxy, dimension?
Yeah. So it's an energetic imprint. So wherever there's place to imprint, it can be there. So if you're open to past lives, then yes, it would contain all the information of your past lives. If you're open to experiencing a lifetime outside of the earthly realm, then yes, it would include that as well. So it's every sort of thought, action, behavior has a vibrational frequency to it, and it gets imprinted into what we call the Akashic field, the quantum field. And then your specific Akashic records, if you think about that, that's a vast amount of information from even like say a year in your life, let alone a lifetime or multiple lifetimes. So when you open up one's Akashic records, there's almost like I picture it as like everyone has their own GPS location that the universe locates you from. And then from that, when you open up someone's records, it's not like you have access to all the things all at once, because it would almost just be like the library shelf collapsing on you in a sense. So there's almost like, I think of it almost like energetic fields or keepers that will help to distill the information as it's coming down so that it comes down in a way that makes sense, in a way that offers support and guidance. And then just because we're inquiring doesn't mean we necessarily have access to that information, because we're not we're not commanding consciousness to meet our egoic needs. We're simply seeing if there's information in the field that we can have access to.
Right. So we've covered the Akashic Records in other shows before, and it's been painfully obvious that my library card is no longer in existence because I can't ever even imagine what this thing could be. But
So you're still using the Dewey Decimal System. It doesn't work.
it's got little drawer that
Drawers,
but what so I think most of the people that are listening are comfortable with the Akashic Record, what they are, how they work, even if they can't access it. The biggest question mark here is what I teased at the beginning of the show, which was using them to help us to guide. You mentioned GPS, right? So how can someone access this strange, mystical thing that I can't wrap my head around to help them to make sense of where they've been and where they need to go from there?
Because we are a society that relies so heavily on what the mind understands, and we use that as sort of the bar as to where we can access information from. So if you're going to be accessing information from a space beyond the mind and what it stores as memory and data, then you're going into the intuitive field. So if you're, if the intuitive field is the broad word and languaging for the smaller distilled ways that we communicate, which I shared earlier with the clairaudio, claircognizant, clairvoyant, clairsentient. Those are the 4 main clairs that I work with. So it's not so much can you access it or not, because you can't ever not be in it. It is everywhere. So when we're playing with like, I can't get in and I can't get information from that, it's not that you're being denied. And a lot of this, like when I work with people on how to, teach them how to access their own records or the records of other people, what I thought would be a lot of my time spent working the muscle of the intuitive edge for people. Like, so if they feel tingling, how can we tunnel into that further and expand that tingling into a broader range of communication? That's where I thought I would spend a lot of my time when I'm working with people and teaching them how to access or how to work with the Akashic Records. But honestly, a lot of what I'm doing is dismantling the way that we limit ourselves through belief systems or fears or doubts, which makes us have the impression of, I can't access it. I can't get at it. There's nothing that comes in. It's crickets. It's quiet. There's nothing speaking to me. And I would almost, push that conversation a little bit and say, okay, is there a place within you that can understand that you can't actually not be participating with it? Because it's connected. It's a matrix that's connected to everything that's alive, everything that has a consciousness. So if you're a living, breathing entity, you're in the soup of it, whether you like it or not. And so what you're playing with is, am I actively co-participating with it or subconsciously co-participating with it? And that's where you play with it a bit. So then to lean into your question where you're asking, okay, so how does something so mythical and mystery and of the non-physical realm become practical in the everyday? Well, where I'd play with that, first of all, is maybe we put things too far on a mystical edge that it becomes non-relatable after time. And so can we take the Akashic Records and dismantle some of the mystery around it and make it more practical in the sense of, you have 5 senses. And so those are very dense when they're in your physical form. And when you start to go into, say, meditation or contemplation or even daydreaming can be a gateway in for some people, or being in nature, you're going to move from a more dense felt sense of yourself to a lighter state. And your senses go from feeling to clairsentient, to being able to feel when nothing's actually touching or taking place, to be able to hear when no one's actually speaking. And so that's just the bridge of like, how is this available to everyone? Because you have senses, you have clairs, and because you have clairs, that's the communication hub between the physical and the non-physical. How you make it practical is allowing yourself to be open and available to receive the information that is constantly dancing with you on a daily basis. But perhaps we're distracted by constantly having a phone or a busy lifestyle or noise around us that we can't hear the subtle information that's coming through.
But still, then that kind of makes me go back to my first question. How do you know that it's not just something you're thinking, just like popped into your head, and that it's something coming from the Akashic?
Yeah, coming from the field. So that's where that's where someone would play with it and work the muscle a little bit. So for sure, I can work with individuals and they can be like, okay, well, am I experiencing this in the Akashic Records, or did I watch something on Netflix yesterday that's coming through that's now making me think that I'm actually just repeating something that I watched on TV the night before? So there is this little bit of argument there with like, yes, let's find the distillation between the two. And if everything is communicating all the time, this is where I stretch it a bit. You can't ever decipher what is a part of the field and what is not a part of the field. Because so for example, okay, I'll give a little bit of a wild example. When I first started off, I had an individual come to me, and this isn't how I normally work the records, but they were feeling like there was some sort of an entity of some sort that was just kind of giving them a lot of grief and making it challenging for them to see positive, to be able to have light and positive experiences in life. So then I went and worked with my teacher before this booking to be like, listen, I've never really worked with this before. I don't know even my own relationship with, say, curses or hexes or things like that. And she gave me some tools to work with when I was in the session with this individual. We went through the entire session, nothing came up at all. But then 2 days later, I had someone who I've known for a decade come in and do a session with me. And all of the tools that that teacher was working with me with came in that session. So everything is sort of setting everything up in a sense that everything can be useful. And so how I play with the Akashic Records is it's inclusive of everything and exclusive of nothing. So you can spend a lot of time wondering, well, is this my imagination or is this actual? And this is a lot of the conversation we have when we're learning how to read our own records because we're so close to ourselves, we can't see it. But where it starts to become really interesting is in part 2, when I work with people, that's when you're starting to read the Akashic Records for someone else. And when we work in those cohorts, you know them a little bit because you've spent a couple days with them in part 1 when we're learning how to access our own records. But essentially, someone in the US is in my group and someone from the UK is in my group, and they don't know each other other than just this training that we've come into. And so when they start to read their records and they're sharing things that are coming up through, say, a knowingness within them, and they're sharing it because they have nothing else to go on, it starts to build the confidence in they're like, oh, this is actually how it comes through when I'm in my own records. But I keep getting in the way of myself by thinking it's my imagination and not letting the conscious stream flow. So it's like a stop, start, a stop, start, a stop, start when I'm working with myself. Whereas when I'm totally in a blind reading and I know nothing about this individual, the only thing that I can lean into is the way that I'm intuiting what is coming through and sharing it with the individual. And then that individual in their own way is going to bounce back and start sharing like, yes, that's accurate, or yes, that resonates. And then it starts to build the muscle from there, if that makes sense. But there will always be the questioning. And this is why I think so many people deny themselves the experience of playing with it because they don't want to come across as being an imposter or that they're being, just creating almost like a movie reel and sharing it with the individual. So that boundary or that barometer, that skeptic, it's actually really healthy when we're going through learning how to read the records because it makes us cross-check ourselves and makes us see if like, is this accurate or is this not accurate? And the making it up energy, it's more dense than the energy that flows through in a current form. And that's something that we also play with is like when you're reading the Akashic Records for someone right now, do you feel like you're listing information that's coming from your cognitive brain, from your physical body, or does it feel like you're in the lighter energy of your claircognizance? So there's so many different nuances, and it's very personalized when I work with people to try and tease that out with them to see what space are they reading it from.
So I have a question that occurred to me as you were talking. We've had these conversations for many, many years, and some of the lessons that we've learned they compound on each other, so they all kind of touch on each other. So if that's the case, we've learned over the past, I don't know how many years, that time is not linear. And the Akashic Records, from my understanding, is a record of everything that has ever happened to a soul or ever will happen to a soul. So are we able to access things that to us in 3D linear time are still yet to come?
Yes, but I work with it from it's a probable energy, not an absolute. And so, yeah, that's a really good point because it's like, oh, it's this past life and this past life. So even the conversation that you're sharing there, it's a timeline conversation. And so we language in that way because that's how the brain makes sense and is able to hold conversation. If we talk in a way that doesn't have contrast or doesn't have time and space, then we can't be in conversation in this 3D form.
Right.
So yes, we talk about past lives and future probabilities, But in the Akashic itself, it's all collapsed into present moment. And that's even hard for me
Yeah.
to comprehend. It's hard to comprehend.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's like the way that I sort of describe it is like, say, for example, in this lifetime, I'm working with financial abundance.
Mm-hmm.
I can go into my own Akashic records and see, is there a lifetime that I've had that I've been financially abundant? And if I can feel into that lifetime, then in present moment, it's almost like you're dipping into that lifetime. And I want to gather the resources from that lifetime and bring them into this lifetime to help me create more financial abundance.
Now we're getting to the nitty.
Okay,
You can
and
do that.
How do you do that?
Yeah. So then you go into someone's Akashic records. And if it's like, there's nothing, like you've actually had several lives of being impoverished, or you've had several lifetimes that were short or quick, or maybe this is only your third round of hanging out on earth. And so there is no past lifetime where you've had financial abundance. So then you can go into the future version of yourself. If you want to play a little bit, the reason why you desire that in present moment is because there's a version of you who's already living out the fulfillment of what it is that you're desiring. And it's almost like a touch back into present moment to be like, hey, this is where it started. This is where you started to change the patterns of how you were living and started to add momentum in the direction of creating abundance. And so let's come from the future, let's come into the present and give you a few more resources to work with.
So then I guess the Akashic Records just rewrites itself as it goes, because if it's a probable future, right?
Yeah.
And everything's already written, I would assume that, this gets crazy, because there is such a thing as timeline shifting and different dimensions that we're living in, and every decision we make branches off into another version of us, that Akashic Records got to be freaking massive, right? But in the future, I guess it just is able to mold itself and rewrite itself to fit the timeline that you're currently on.
You're also getting into languaging that's getting a little bit beyond my own expertise of being able to say that with authority. And I also love to live in a like, here's what I've played with, here's what I've experienced, but nothing that I work with is dogmatic, because that just goes back into kind of religious conditioning and whatnot that I turn away from quite intentionally. But if I'm doing a session with someone and they want to go into like, okay, I'm looking at changing my career right now, and I'm wondering if this would be a good avenue for me, or if this would be a good avenue. So when we go into future or even relationship, a lot of people like to go into future relationships. How it makes sense to me when I'm playing with it is that there will be certain lines of energy that have more momentum going in that direction. And so that's what's going to come through when you're asking for data and information on it. Now, what I will say is, when you are listening to this recording, if you're going to make action 6 to 8 months from now, based on what you're hearing today, might be a good idea to check back in and see if that line of energy is still accurate, because a lot can happen in 6 to 8 months to change that.
Sure.
Right. So, there's a lot of conversations I listen to with like, is it predestined or do we have choice? And I think it's actually both at once. And it's not a very confirming answer for a lot of people that like the black or white, but I really do feel like it is both slightly predestined and open to choice. So for example, potentially when you choose to come into this lifetime, you choose the country that you move in, that you're born into, you choose the parents, you set up eye color, hair color, so many different conditions to your incarnation before you even arrive. And when you're experiencing that incarnation, you have so many different choices that you're taking, that's where the awareness of free will comes in. So yes, it's partly predestined, and yes, there's also choice. And I appreciate how frustrating that can sound, because it's not actually giving an absolute answer as this is it and here we are.
Especially to a pragmatist like me. It's trying to wrap your head around the concept like this. This has been the most difficult thing about doing this show.
So then how can it be helpful? You know,
The whole conversation?
well, like tapping into the Akashic records, if they're changing or maybe not changing, or like how would that tapping in help me with my life?
Well, so so many different ways that we can play with it. So like personally, I don't I mean, I might disappoint some listeners, but I don't actually ask a lot of questions when I go into the Akashic records, because the part of me that has to know what's coming and prepare for it, I'm a lot more relaxed with that relationship with myself. So when I'm going into the Akashic records, what I love to do is to experience just different states of consciousness. So I'll go into the Akashic records and I'll ask to um, have my cup filled for the day, right? Like how can the light filled energy just come in, and how can I be of service to myself and to my vocation in a way that that feels like it's moving beyond my physical conditionings, my human conditionings, right? I might go in and just sit and bask in the Akashic records. Um, and sometimes what will come in is something will ping after I've been in the record. So, for example, most recently, I've sort of reached a point with my work where I feel like I want to be expanding into a different arena rather than the one that I've been playing in up until now. And so I go into the Akashic records, and all I'm asking is show me the ways in which I'm supported and the direction that I'm meant to be going at this time. Now, it does not, when I'm working with myself, it very rarely will come in instantly, well, Heather, thanks for asking that question. Here's where you need to go next,
Dang it.
right? So it's more like I sit in the frequency of my inquiry and allow myself to be kind of immersed in it and absorbed with it. And then what happened was later on that day, I got this ping to be like, hey, remember that corporate option that you had pre-COVID that wasn't open to mental health fitness? They're open now because lots has changed post-COVID, and go and reach out. So literally sent an email later that day to someone that I'd emailed 6 years ago and was like, hey, you guys open for the conversation now? And it was like, absolutely, let's talk. So it's ways like that. It's not always like people really want the direct, specific, like, show me exactly the man that I'm supposed to be marrying in the next 6 months. And they want these very concrete ways of playing with it. I just I let it be more co-participating, co-creating. It's a relational field, which means you have to be in relationship to it. So if I'm going in and every time I'm going in, I'm simply imposing, here's what I want, bring it to me. Here's what I want, bring it to me. Here's what I want, bring it to me. I'm not in a relationship with it. It's almost like it's almost like I'm trying to be an authority over rather than to coincide and exist beside. So I will go in and say, hey, like I really feel like, potentially this relationship is coming to an end. And the response I might get is possibly from your human perspective, but from here, there's still so much that can come from it. We're going to ask that you just hang on for a little bit longer and see how you can play with that a bit more. So it's a conversation back and forth, not an authoritative relationship, if that makes sense.
So you're walking along in your regular life, and all of a sudden you find yourself able to tap into these records, or did you actually work towards, I want to tap into these Akashic records? How did that work for you?
No, I wanted nothing to do with them, to be honest.
Nice.
Yeah. So I love working with the energetic realm in a very sort of socially accepted way, is like the how I've kind of lived up until this point. So when I merged into yoga 20 years ago, it was right when yoga studios were starting to become like, the corner, like just right beside the coffee shops on every corner.
Right.
But just as I was going through the training, it was still like in the ashrams and in like these quiet, secluded places. And literally within like 6 months of me completing my teacher training, that was when yoga was blowing up and it was everywhere. So by the time I moved into it, I was like, yeah, I'm doing yoga. And they're like, oh, that's great. Can you show? So it was always very accepted. People recognized the health benefits of it. I didn't feel like I was out on the fringes or in an unrelatable way of hanging out with people. Now, when I moved into the Akashic Records, all that I was longing for was a way to be able to connect with people in a deeper, more meaningful way, that I was aware that a 1 hour yoga class couldn't provide. And even when I did, like, I taught a lot of teacher trainings in yoga as well, but there's a lot of curriculum that you have to get through in a teacher training. So it's rigid in a sense. And I was like, I just want a way to be able to have deeper, more meaningful connections with people. And I don't know what that is. And I just let that sit out there, this sort of longing. And how the Akasha came to me was when COVID hit. My husband's aviation, I'm yoga, so both of our industries were shut down instantly, and we were home. Our two older daughters were homeschooled, but our youngest son was still able to go to preschool. So it's kind of this situation where we were all together, but the girls were, learning online. Our son was occupied, and so my husband and I were just given opportunity to be like, hey, it was almost like a privilege in a sense. And I know a lot of people had a challenge at that time, but for us, it was like, wow, like we just get this time freedom to play with. So I just found myself doing a lot of yoga practices and meditations. And every time I'd sit in meditation, I would just have this little request, like, show me how I can go deeper and further. And there was 3 nights in a row where this particular woman's name came to mind. Now, I had met her in the summertime, and when I knew her from our family's upbringing, but I hadn't talked to her in like 20 years. And when I said, hey, what are you doing? She said, oh, I work with the Akashic Records. She gave me her card. I tucked it in my wallet. I didn't even think anything of it. But her name came up 3 times in a row when I was meditating. And so by the third time, I was like, okay, I'm going to reach out. And I sent her an email and said, listen, your name has come up 3 times. I have no idea what it means, but I do feel like you will when you receive this email. And she wrote back and she was like, well, maybe it's time to book an Akashic reading. Are you open to doing that with me? And so that's how it started. I booked a reading with her. She shared that I was using the Akashic Records a lot, but not in a conscious way, in a very subconscious way. And she's like, if you want, we can bring this more to a conscious level, and I can work with you in that. So I had the time, and it wasn't an expensive training. And so I was like, okay, let's do it. And then even when we finished and I was ready to just kind of go and start using it on my own, I said to her, what are we going to call this? Because no one where I live in a small mountain town it's skiing, it's mountain biking, it's fly fishing. It's not the metaphysical at all. And I was like, nobody's even going to know what this is. Like, how do I work with this and create an income from it? And all she said was, you're going international. And if you don't call it what it is, people aren't going to be able to find you. And it just went from there. But even now, I've just finished writing a book on like the Akashic Records for the modern human.
That's right.
And there's so much in there that I had to work through in my own skepticism with a lot of this, because a lot of how I like to live is like, if it's not practical to the everyday, why bother? If it's not making this particular life more meaningful, more expressive, what's the point? And so even as a yoga teacher, I would shy away from, those teachers that really lived through rose-colored glasses, and, they could travel to amazing states, but couldn't pay a utility bill, right? Couldn't meet for coffee at the right time because they got it wrong on their calendar. So I've always been interested in the energetic realm, but I've very much done it in a grounded way. And so the Akashic Records has to be grounded in the practical. Right. And honestly, the process of learning how to work with the Akashic Records is such a tremendous journey to know thyself, to see where you actually have hidden talents and gifts that you didn't even know were available because you couldn't see them or someone shut them down, to see where you hold yourself back, to see where your blind spots are. So it really is a continuous journey to really understand and know thyself.
Is this another word for psychic abilities?
No, I mean, it's a mediumship that they're relatable. So the Akashic Records is its own modality. You stay conscious the whole time you're in the Akashic Record. Like, it would almost probably feel like we're having a conversation like we are right now if we were to do a reading together. Um, and some people will use the Akashic records to help open up their mediumship of psychic abilities.
Okay.
But they're separate. They're not like I don't do any psychic mediumship, and I work with the Akashic records all the time.
Okay. I just wasn't sure if maybe
Yeah.
is that what the psychics are actually tapping into the Akashic records and don't realize it, or
Well, if you're using the definition of Akasha as consciousness and or the quantum field, like of course they're tapping into it because that's you can't not be tapping into it. It's like try not to breathe air. Like it's all around you. It's everywhere. You can't not breathe air, right? That's what you're designed to do. So
yeah, watch
to
me.
say that the Akashic records breathe air. So the Akasha breathes air, but the psychics don't breathe air. Like it's almost like the Reiki, the psychics, you're all using something from the universal field that you're tapping into. But it's literally like, what are you plugging into? And so the Akashic records is plugging into the vibrational library of someone's soul. A psychic mediumship, I don't fully understand. I haven't like researched enough to know exactly how they would define that. But is it mediumship in the sense that, like for me, how I understand mediumship is the bridge between the physical and the non-physical. So absolutely, that's what the Akasha is doing. That's what Reiki is doing. That's what psychic work is doing, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So when you have a session with someone and you're tapping into their Akashic records, do you have to go into meditation, or is it just like there and you're getting the information?
Yeah. So when I first started, I used to spend about 20 to 30 minutes before a session meditating just with myself to almost prepare myself for the session, because the muscle wasn't super strong for me to be able to just flick the switch from, packing my kids' lunch to then going and sitting in my office and doing a session. So I needed that buffer between the two to get me out of the density of like my to-do list and into like a more lighter state. But now it can be pretty quick. But I just personally like to have transitions between whatever I was doing prior to doing something and what I'm doing now. The other thing that's important is that the person who's doing the reading has to be incredibly skilled at being able to be neutral. So there will be information that comes through, and the Heather and me might be like, ooh, that sounds very like direct and almost like blunt. And then I'll get this push that'll be like, that's exactly how it needs to be said. So keep in mind, when I'm in someone's records, I'm in their vibrational frequency, not mine. So if someone understands best by direct, no nonsense languaging, then that's how the data is actually going to come through. If someone needs a lot of softness and tiptoeing around it, then that's actually how it gets languaged. If people are like really fast energies, there's sometimes I'm in their field and I'm like almost gasping because I'm talking so fast, like faster than my normal cadence.
Wow.
And sometimes it feels like I'm smoking a joint and I'm just like, oh my God, this is so slow.
That's the one I want.
It's like molasses moving through here. But it's just that everyone has a different frequency, a different energetic pattern. So the neutralness is what's most important, because I'm not here to provide a nice experience. I'm here to just provide the space for what wants to come through. So I have to make sure my own people pleasing and wanting to be liked energy is really like put in the back seat for the session that I'm doing. Yeah.
So you mentioned that the records reflect our soul's evolution, right? So what do they say about the collective transformation? Are we evolving together? Is there something that we need to know, that what the Akashic records baiting down your door saying you need to get this out there?
You mean like what's my collective message?
Yeah.
Or, well, so it's an interesting question because I don't work with the collective a whole lot. I work more with the personal individual.
Okay.
So I don't spend a lot of time. So also like people are like, what do you mean you haven't gone into the Akashic records on this and you haven't gone into this? And I'm like, okay, well, also keep in mind, I'm a mother of 3. I work full time. I need to prioritize my own wellness. So there isn't just this uninterrupted amount of time that I have in a week to just go into all the different experiences that you can do with the Akashic records. I personally never get pulled to spend a lot of time trying to understand what the collective energy is playing with. But for example, like I have like an alumni group and we just meet live on Substack. And when we were in there this month, what we just went into is I was like, let's go into not like the predictions of 2026, but let's go into the felt frequency of 2026. So we just opened up the frequency of 2026, and how we played with it was there was a group of, probably 12 individuals. We opened it up as a group. So every single person is opening it up at the same time. And I would just give little prompts into the space that they could automatic write, they could make a mental note on, all the rest of it. And then once we closed and came into like a Q&A kind of conversation afterwards, that's where I find it fascinating, because everyone had a very similar experience of what sort of the 2026 frequency was. And what was so interesting was that it was actually very quiet. It wasn't a lot of noise. It felt like it was an elusive energy. It felt like it was still kind of processing what's happened and hadn't quite had a line of direction on exactly what's taking place next. And almost everyone was having this similar experience. And so um, I guess that's as far as I've gone with the collective energy of 2020, is that we're in a transitional period of still reflecting on where we've gotten up until now, and using that as agency as to how we want to step forward. So it's almost like a pause, an energetic pause was what I was feeling. Now, do I go super far into like, what's happening in the next 5 to 10 years? It doesn't super turn me on and interest me to go there. Yeah.
So it's either that we're taking a pause or that there is no future. One or the other.
Both are options. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But like a psychic mediumship would have so much information. Like I still get my astrology emails and like I love the Power Path and getting a monthly forecast from them, and Mystic Mama. These are great, very practical tools that I'll read and listen to. But I really love working with the individual with like, what is the patterns that are preventing you from the becoming of yourself? What's the patterns that are telling you that you can't behave the way you want to be? And how can we use the Akashic Records to help support that?
Your upcoming book says it connects the records with water's intelligence.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you see science catching up with what mystics have known for centuries about the intelligence of water?
Well, what I'm really enjoying right now, like part of the aliveness of this moment is, science and spirituality were separated hundreds of years ago, more for convenience, right? Like the church is going to take on spirituality, and science can take on the material plane, right? So it was more like practicality and how to keep everyone happy. What's super interesting is like the quantum field is accelerating to such a degree that it can no longer deny, or it's getting to the point where the denial of the non-physical realm can't sit in the science space anymore, because science will be unable to keep moving forward. So it's almost like what was once separated is now coming full circle and joining back in towards each other. So I find it really interesting and fascinating to, be in these little, conversations that I'm hearing about how science is talking about how, even the black hole, the void space, right? How this was once, considered the nothingness and it has no significance, is actually the everything, right? So remind me again, I think I derailed a little bit from what your original question was. It was about the water, right? So water, Veda Austin's work is fascinating. She's a Kiwi, and so she does something called crystallography. And so this is similar to the Japanese scientist who was showing how thought can be, shown through the crystallization of water. And where she's kind of stretching the conversation a little bit further, which I really find interesting to listen to, is like if water holds memory, right? This is like, even those that don't listen to the bigger conversations, you can literally watch Frozen on Disney and listen to how Olaf talks about how water holds memory. Like it is common conversation. You just have to be in the conversation to see that it's more common than if you're hearing it for the first time here. Right. But like water holds memory, and water is constantly recycled, right? It goes from vapor and it goes into density and then it goes into liquid, and it just is constantly being recycled, and it holds memory. So the conversation that she's stretching is, can we start to look at water and consciousness as being synonymous? Because everything that you're encased with has water. Like air has water. You have to drink water in order to survive. Even something that looks like it doesn't have water, like mineral, actually has water molecules in it. And when you want to hear the sound that rock makes, you can hook up instruments that are literally tapping into the water frequency to make the sound that the rocks are emoting and emitting out. So that's where I find it really interesting, is like water is not a triggering word for a lot of people. But if you want to talk God or spirit or religion or energy, there's usually, you got to use so many different words to make the conversation inclusive, because there's so many people that have triggers with different words in that language. But water, for the most part, it's a pretty neutral language. So if you want to open up conversation about water being synonymous with consciousness, I love the freedom that it invites people to come in and talk about. So if you can never separate from spirit, if you can never separate from source, from energy, it's the same with water. You can't separate from it. It's in absolutely everything. And it holds the memory of everything that was. So essentially how I'm playing with it is like, because I do get curious, like what is actually happening in an Akashic reading? Well, what if the water molecules inside my body are connecting to the water molecules inside your body, and they're languaging with each other because they speak the same language?
Ooh, I like
It's
that.
super cool and
That's
fun,
very
right?
cool.
And it gives you another way to play with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if someone wanted to experience the records, maybe they're still not 100% sure that they believe in it, what's the one simple first step they could take to experience this field for themselves?
Well, I would start by being open to receive, first of all, because you can't absorb anything if you're hard edging against it. So see if you can soften. Like for some people, it's a physical softening. For some people, it's an energetic. Some people, it's emotional. Sometimes it's mental. So what needs to be softened so that I can be open to the conversation of it? And then I would start with playing with like recalling a moment in life where something took place that you couldn't actually rationally explain it. You were thinking of mom, and mom called 2 minutes later. You had a vision of, I don't know, like a job promotion, and you got that job promotion the next month. Like, what is something that's like, it is just so crazy, I can't even explain it? Because that is the communicative field. And then if you're like, I've never even had that happen before. Well, you can go and see how it takes place in nature. When you watch those swarms of birds be moving in one direction and then instantly they all go in another direction, that's not someone sending a message down the line.
Everybody
Hey guys,
go
we're
left.
gonna go left. Stop going right. We're gonna take a left here. Like that is an instant in sync intelligence that makes that a flock of birds go in another pattern. So there's a lot of ways that nature will even emulate that, right? So first, it's like, are you even open to it? And if you're open to it, what makes you open to it? And then also, if you want to go back to my conversation of future sort of pinging, a lot of people that come in and reach out to me, they're like, I don't even actually know why I'm booking this or why I'm asking questions about it, but I just keep getting this like niggling or tingling that like there's something more than this physical existence that I'm participating in. And so that's where we just start to play with it. So in order for someone to actually be curious, that curiosity itself has to be coming from something beyond the mind space. Otherwise they go and read a book on it.
Gotcha.
Rather than trying to have an experience of it.
That
Right?
makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So then from there, it's like, okay, so then in the session, I mean, if I'm doing a session with someone, I do my very best to, meet the person where they're at. So, I mean, if they're going to be if they're more of a meat and potatoes, I'm going to talk in languaging that's more easier for them to understand. And if they're more esoteric, then I'll talk more vegetarian if I want to, right? But I allow myself to have to create a space where people feel welcome. And I'll be the first to say, like, I don't have all the answers to all the things, but we can have an experience together, and you can let me know how it goes.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if someone wanted to experience that with you, or maybe sign up for a wait list for your book or something like that, wants to connect with you to dive deeper into the topic, what's the best way for someone to do that?
Yeah, I'd say my website has all the other links to everything else. And if you go to my website, which is just my name, it's HeatherIvany, IVANY.com. There's lots of free on there. So there's lots of things that you can listen to and check out that are free. You can also subscribe on Substack, and I meet once there for live gathering, and that's a minimal payment. But to book a session and to get interest into the next upcoming Akashic training, it's all on my website there. And if you can't find what you're looking for, then just reach out, send me an email, and I do personally respond to those. I don't have an assistant that does that.
Okay, great. Well, we're going to lay in a direct link to your website on our show notes. So if you didn't have a pen at that particular point in time, you know the deal. Just go to skepticmetaphysician.com. You can go to her episode page. You'll find a link directly there, so it's easy for you to connect. Heather, this has been eye-opening in so many different ways. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us. I am going to reach out because I got some questions.
That's great. I look forward to it. Right. Thanks for having me on and being open to a different conversation.
Always. All right. It's a pleasure meeting you. We'll talk to you again soon.
Take care.
Sounds good. Take care.
Okay, well, that does it for this episode of the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Thanks for coming along on this journey beyond the veil. If you're enjoying the ride, don't forget to visit us at skepticmetaphysician.com to dive even deeper into the world of metaphysics and spiritual awakenings. Follow us also on your favorite social media platforms. We're always sharing mind-expanding content and behind-the-scenes fun. And if you're craving connection with like-minded seekers, join our community. The link is on the show notes. And hey, if you're feeling the vibes, help others find us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It makes a huge difference, and we would be so grateful. Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, but most of all, keep your mind open.